Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum ji. Let's continue our discussion on neural networks. Today we will focus on activation functions. We know that uh, neuron is a building block of neural network, and each neuron is characterized by activation function because the activation function quantifies the output, how the weighted sum of the input is transformed into an output, right? Consequently, the choice of activation function would have significant impact on the performance and overall behavior of neural network. That's how we define a single neuron. We have D number of inputs. We define Z as pre-activation output, which has weighted sum of inputs plus bias. And we pass this weighted sum through an activation function G to obtain G of Z. So G is an activation function. We require G to be some nonlinear function. We require G to introduce nonlinearity in the neuron. Why? Okay, as an example, say we take G of Z as a linear function. G of Z is alpha Z plus beta, linear. Scaling plus offset, scaling plus shifting. And if I use this G of Z for activation, and I apply this mapping on W transpose X plus B. So G of W transpose X plus B would be alpha W transpose X plus B plus beta. This can be equivalently expressed in this form. If I merge alpha with W and call it W tilde, and I merge alpha beta plus alpha B plus beta, and I call this as B tilde. So when you see this, when you observe this, you can say activation function is not doing anything, right? What's the consequence of this? If we have different layers of the network, we can collapse all the layers, and all of the operation of all the layers can be equivalently represented by just single linear transformation. Okay. Furthermore, we require activation function to be differentiable if we want to use gradient descent for learning of the parameters. Among activation functions, some standard functions include identity, which is a special form of linear function, because if you have linear function alpha Z plus beta, if I choose beta is equal to 0 and alpha is equal to 1, I get identity. Right? Step function, rectified linear, leaky rectified linear, sigmoid, and hyperbolic tangent. Let's look at each of these functions in detail, their mathematical formulation, their graphical representation, and what are the issues with each of these activation functions. Let's begin with step function. Mathematically, step function is defined as it gives you 1 when argument is greater than 0 and 0 otherwise. Graphically, we have 0 for negative values of Z, and G of Z is equal to 1 for positive values of Z. At Z is equal to 0, we have a discontinuity. We have used this activation function before. In fact, this was an activation function when we studied perceptron. The weighted sum plus bias is greater than 0, you get 1. If less than 0, you get 0. Right? And the issue with the step function is that this is non-differentiable, and consequently, we do not use it for learning. When learning of parameters, employing gradient descent. Another issue is it only supports binary classification. It returns either 0 or 1. So output is binary. Right? So that was step function. Let's talk about linear activation function. So we have just defined G of Z is alpha Z plus beta. Linear function, its derivative is constant. So G dash of Z is alpha. Since the derivative is a constant, it is not possible to use it for back propagation, which is a method to learn the weights of the network. And we will study this in the next video. But when the derivative is constant, we do not have any interpretation about which weights can provide a better prediction. The derivative is constant all the time. Right? Linear function does not capture non-linearities, irrespective of the depth of the network. I've also explained this earlier, that if you have linear activation function, all of the layers can be collapsed with, and equivalent operation would be a single linear transformation. However, we use linear activation function for at the output layer when we have a regression problem in hand. And obviously, if you have a linear regression model, you would love to choose a linear activation function, right? Okay, moving forward, let's talk about sigmoid activation function. We have also seen this earlier. Mathematically, this would be 1 over 1 plus exponent of minus of z. We use sigma to denote sigmoid activation function. We call it sigmoid because of this. It's because of the S-shaped curve of the function. And the sigmoid pushes values from minus infinity to infinity to a bounded region between 0 and 1. And it's steadily increasing. When z is increasing from minus infinity to infinity, g of z increases from 0 to 1. And if you compare this with a step function, this is a soft version of a smooth version of a step function. It is softening the boundaries, softening the transition, the sharp transition we had for the step function, right? Okay, it is suitable for output neurons when neural network is used for classification, as we have used this, in fact, for logistic regression. So logistic regression, a one neuron neural network, single neural network, where the activation function is sigmoid at the output layer. And the good thing about sigmoid is it is differentiable. It is a very simple representation of its derivative. So g dash of z would be simply g of z 1 minus g of z. But there are some issues with sigmoid function due to which we do not use sigmoid functions very frequently in neural networks these days. The first issue, which is very severe and which is problematic, that is a saturation problem or vanishing gradient, or in some texts, they refer to it as killing gradient. So what is the effect? So we consider a neuron saturated when it reaches its maximum or minimum value. So what are the maximum and minimum values? So 1 is the maximum value of the function and 0 is the minimum value. Let's say when g of z is equal to 0, g of z is equal to 1. What about its derivative? So g dash of z vanishes to 0. So when g of z reaches its maximum or minimum value, so g dash of z is equal to 0, or gradient vanish. This will be a problem during learning. So gradient is 0, we won't have any updates, and consequences, we will have poor learning for deep networks. A network is called a deep network when we have more than two hidden layers, right? Sigmoid outputs are not zero-centered. This is another issue with sigmoid. What do you mean by this? If you see sigmoid is centered around 0.5. It's not centered around 0. And the consequence is the gradient of all the weights for a neuron is either positive or negative. And consequently, the weights move in one direction. All of the weights would move in the same direction. This issue is less severe as gradients are added across the batch, and consequently we will not have the weights moving in one direction. When we compute for different training inputs, we get different weights, different values of gradients. And when you add those gradients, we can have weights moving in different directions. And that can mitigate that to an extent, this issue with sigmoid, that sigmoid is not zero-centered, right? Okay, so that was sigmoid. Let's talk about hyperbolic tangent. Hyperbolic tangent mathematically is a shifted version of sigmoid. Sigmoid was not zero-centered. If we shift sigmoid, we can make it zero-centered. Right? Mathematically, tan of h is given by 2 sigma 2z. So you scale sigmoid with respect to an argument along y-axis and then shift by -1. And graphically, it looks like this. It looks like sigmoid, right? It's a shifted sigmoid. The scale version of sigmoid. It squishes values in minus infinity to between -1 and 1. Sigmoid was squishing between 0 and 1, but tan h squishes between -1 and 1. And it's also boundary and strictly increasing. But unlike sigmoid, tan hyperbolic is zero-centered. And therefore, it resolves the issue what we had for the case of sigmoid. It is also differentiable and has a very simple formula of derivative. G dash of z would be 1 minus g of z whole squared. You can show this very easily by taking derivative of this and applying quotient rule. You can show that g dash of z is in fact 1 minus g of z squared. But it still suffers from the issue of vanishing gradient. Right? When g of z reaches extreme values, 1 or -1, what about its derivative? When g of z is 1 or -1, so this would be, this square term would be always 1, and g dash of z would be 0. And again, due to this vanishing gradient problem, we would have poor learning for deep networks. Right? I have not discussed one more issue with both sigmoid and tan hyperbolic, and that is the computation of exponents. So both require the evaluation of exponents. And evaluation of exponent is computationally intensive operation. Right? Okay, let's move towards the next activation function, what we call rectified linear unit, often abbreviated as ReLU. Right? So RE for rectified, L for linear, and U for unit. ReLU. So it has a very, very simple mathematical representation, super simple. So it gives you maximum of 0 or the argument. Mathematically, it means you will have identity type effect when z is positive and 0 when z is negative. It is rectifying the input. Graphically, you have 0 output when z is negative, and you get z when z is non-negative. We don't have any discontinuity, so this is differentiable, and derivative would be 1 constant, obviously, when z is greater than 0 and 0 when z is less than 0. It is the most used activation function. Why? It is very, very efficient to compute. Unlike sigmoid and tan h, we do not require the computation of exponents here. Another good thing about rectified linear unit is it only activates for which output is non-negative. It deactivates the neurons if the pre-activation output is less than 0. And due to which this makes ReLU computationally efficient as compared to sigmoid and tan h. But this is this is an issue. There are some issues with ReLU as well. Obviously, it's not zero-centered. So, and we know that this is not a major issue when we are training the network for a large number, for a batch of inputs. ReLU does not suffer from the saturation problem. However, we have vanishing gradient for negative values. And this phenomena is sometimes termed as a dead neuron issue with ReLU. That there is a possibility that ReLU output is 0. So gradient is 0. And so neuron would be considered dead. So no weights would be, no update in the weights of the neuron. Okay. So to resolve these issues, different variants of ReLU have been proposed in the literature. We will look at one which is very popular, that is leaky ReLU. As the name suggests, we have some leakage for negative values of Z. So we do not have 0 for every negative value of Z. So we allow some leakage. The typical value of alpha is very small, usually 0.01. In fact, when we use 0.01, we called it leaky ReLU. For other values of Z less than 0.01, we call it randomized ReLU. Can you plot this for me? Plot looks like, it looks like identity for non-negative values of Z. For negative values of Z, it would have a slope of alpha. Okay. So if you compare this with ReLU, so ReLU had straight line. Oh, my apologies. But this leaky ReLU has some leakage. And due to this leakage, we get a resolution of some of the issues to an extent. So due to non-zero output for negative values, it keeps neurons alive. So we don't have that dead neuron issue. Furthermore, it is not zero-centered, but it is better than ReLU. It is close to it. So if we have something like this, that is in fact identity, right? But it is close to zero-centered. As I said earlier, if alpha is anywhere less than 0.01, we refer to leaky ReLU as randomized ReLU. And when alpha is 0.01, we have a leaky ReLU. ReLU is also differentiable. Derivative is 1 when Z is non-negative and alpha when Z is negative. So we have studied sigmoid, tan hyperbolic, ReLU, and leaky ReLU. So we use these activation functions for neurons in the hidden layer. What about the choice of activation function for the output layer? So we use identity function if the problem in hand is regression. We use sigmoid if output needs to be between 0 and 1. For example, if we are after the probability value or we are using neural network for classification, we can use sigmoid function at the output layer, right? We can use softmax if output needs to be probability distribution or if we have a multi-class classification problem in hand. We did use softmax and sigmoid in logistic regression for multi-class and binary class respectively, right? Okay, how do you choose the activation function or what's the summary of activation functions? For classification tasks, we prefer to use sigmoid or tan hyperbolic or their combinations. Due to the suggestion problem, sigmoids and tan hyperbolic are sometimes avoided. As indicated earlier, ReLU is mostly used and primarily due to its computational efficiency, because computation of ReLU does not require the computation of exponents. So we have different variants of ReLU, and we have studied one, leaky ReLU. In fact, we studied two, leaky ReLU and randomized ReLU. Okay. The concept is same. You introduce some leakage for negative values of Z. ReLU function is only used in the hidden layers because we do not want to clip the output, clip the sum at the output node. So how do you choose activation function? The rule of thumb is you start with ReLU or leaky ReLU, and if the results are not satisfactory, you may try other activation functions, right? So that was all about activation functions. We have seen different activation functions. We can use for neurons in the hidden layer. What are the possible choices for activation function for the output layer? And what are the pros and cons for each of the activation functions? We'll stop here and we'll continue the next video where we'll focus on learning of the parameters of neural network using famous backpropagation method. Right? Stop here and we will see you in the next video, inshallah. Allah Hafiz.